Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me here today to hear my story about how Trane has accelerated our business-to-business customer experience metrics using data-driven insights. My name is Mike Neely, or Michael Neely, as you can see here, and I'm a senior analyst for Trane and Ingersoll Rand. Trane is a business of Ingersoll Rand as the parent company. A little bit of background about myself. I'm from Liverpool, England, originally, and I moved to the United States back in 2007 to Minnesota, specifically. Some of you might be wondering why, but it was with my work, and subsequently spent 18 months in Shanghai, in China, with Ingersoll Rand, deploying our customer experience program out to the Asia-Pacific region. And then back in 2010, I managed to move myself back to St. Paul, Minnesota, where I've been the leader of the Customer Insights and Market Insights group for the Trane commercial business now for the past 4 years. One of the things that I've been reading about, to prepare for presentations and sessions like this is to try and connect with your audience. And I'm not going to pretend to be a Neil deGrasse Tyson who can connect with his audience using humor and the force of his personality. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that I can connect with you perhaps by LinkedIn. And I'm actually serious about that as we kind of walk through the presentation. If you find things of interest inside of my presentation that I'll deliver, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We can kind of maybe go into detail further because obviously some of the stuff that we'll talk about today will be a little bit detailed, but mostly it's going to be high level. So like I said, if you want to kind of connect and learn a little bit more, get into the weeds of what we do, feel free to do that. I'll also have my business card, and we'll certainly answer any questions at the end of the session. Should probably have about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe even a little bit more, depending on how fast I talk. You might actually want to go ahead and connect right now because I've got to do the who we are slide. So obviously this is more of your generic who is Ingersoll Rand, and so Ingersoll Rand is a pretty large company. You may have heard of Ingersoll Rand. You probably more likely heard of Trane. Perhaps you've heard of Thermo King, transport refrigeration. And you may have heard of Club Car. They're probably perhaps are more well-known brands. Ingersoll Rand is well-known for its compressors, power tools, and the like. We're number one or number two in our North American markets, and actually probably number one and number two in some European and Asia-Pacific markets. So a pretty big business, and obviously we operate in all of the geographic regions. But what do we do? What do I do? So our team is responsible for the Trane commercial business, collection of voice of customer insights. So specifically today we're going to be talking about the customer satisfaction insights that we collect and how we use Tableau to push those insights back into the business. So at this point, raise of hands, how many of you are either currently using Tableau to represent your customer survey data or thinking about doing that? Okay, so at least half, I would say. So you're definitely going to find some interest, I hope anyway, in the presentation today. And obviously for those of you who didn't raise your hands, I still hope that some of the usage of Tableau that I'll demonstrate and Alteryx, in fact, that I'll demonstrate might kind of provoke some interest for you. So again, thinking back about what we do, when you're collecting customer insights, we kind of think of 4 areas in the kind of process. The first step is listening. What are you doing to listen? Are you sending customer surveys out? Are you approaching social media and collecting that social media data? So we need to listen, then we need to interpret that data. We need to analyze that data and figure out really what it means. We want to react. 2 ways that we're going to react. We might want to react directly by responding to our customers in person or on the phone. We also want to react as a business and strategically kind of determine what's important to our customers. So that's the reaction element as well. So make sure that we understand what are are the key drivers of a good customer experience, and essentially react to them and build out processes and action planning to address those thematic issues. And finally, we want to monitor all of this. So we want to kind of track our trends, assess what the performance has been like over time, and really that's where Tableau comes in. Tableau tends to come in at that monitor piece. Obviously, it's a reporting data visualization tool that is very effective, has proved to be very effective for us in that monitoring space. But what we found actually over the 4 years that we've deployed Tableau is that it has impacted the other areas, really by dint of the fact that people have become immersed in the data that we've provided to them inside of Tableau. It's helped us listen better because the business has been more focused on providing data, and we'll see some of that in a moment. So we've got more data to listen as a result of the monitoring that we've provided. We've also, through productivity, moving away from Excel-based reporting to Tableau in and of itself about 4 years ago allowed us to start to have more time to truly look at the insights that we're getting and analyze them and interpret them and feed those insights back into the business, rather than just be working out what cell that formula relates to inside of Excel to try and create a number that you push out to the business at the end of the month. And finally, also to react. We found that, again, it's more of a productivity thing, that we've been able to use other tools, in this case, such as Alteryx, to react to our insights that we've been getting. So Tableau really is monitoring, but essentially it does help us in all of these other areas. So that's kind of critical and important to understand if you're thinking about Tableau as a solution. So what we're going to do is kind of just take a step back in time. We'll look at what things were like before Tableau, then we'll kind of walk into and look at how Tableau has helped us move from the yesterday to today and where we're at now, and then we'll kind of towards the end just take a couple of slides just to look at where we think we're going to go with Tableau and other tools. So what we're looking at right here, and I'm really just diving straight into it, but this is a piece of a report. I say it's a piece of a report. It was the only part of the report besides the next bit that I'll show you that looks like it was from probably around the 1970s, 1980s, but in fact this was actually being deployed, being pushed out to our business back in 2010 when I moved back to St. Paul. What you're seeing is a graphical representation of the percent of highly satisfied respondents for each of the attributes, each of the questions that we ask in a particular survey. And that's it, right? I mean, there's no other insight that you can glean from that other than, one single data point. You know nothing about the customer, nothing about any trending. It's really not very helpful at all. However, we did offer a crosstab, so if you really wanted to, if you were in one of our sales offices, you could go and try and look at all of these numbers and figure out what's going on and spend some time to perhaps figure out, is there some trends going on in these numbers? But if you're in a sales office, you're not going to do that, right? You want to sell to customers. You don't want to be spending your time looking through crosstabs to try and figure out what's going on. So this is what I identified, or what I saw when I first came, and I realized that we needed to change. And at the time, I didn't have anything else at my disposal except Excel. So I went ahead and did what I could inside of Excel, and here's kind of what we had prior to Tableau coming onto the scene. We had some nice trending, at least, of one of our key metrics, and we could see were we up or down, and perhaps we might be able to use a macro to enable us to then go to another piece of Excel which had something similar. But the amount of time and effort it took just to create this was not sustainable. Okay, and really it's still very limited in its scope, and and the amount of problems that would occur should a slight change of data appear. You know, we added a new question, then we've got to go and look at all of these formulas back in the data source, and okay, which VLOOKUP is that one? And like I say, it's just not sustainable. So, you know, we had a big problem. The team actually was doing a lot of good analytical work in the background with all of this data. So we've been collecting these insights, and you know, on the back end, you know, we're doing a lot of key driver analysis. We're doing logistic regression analysis to determine what are the key drivers. We just didn't have a tool at our disposal to push those insights out effectively. I mean, we could produce a presentation that said these are the important attributes, these are the key questions that you want to focus on. But to kind of build that into the kind of data set and deploy that on a month-by-month rolling basis and get trends and all of that was just not viable. So we felt really, you know, we're pushing these insights, or what we would term insights, these numbers out to the business. And by business, there are two ways to kind of think about that as well. I mean, we obviously have our stakeholders out in the sales offices. So they're the people who are interacting with the customers on a day-to-day basis, and we're getting insights for those individuals. But we also want to feed insights into the supporting departments, okay, our finance, our accounting, our operations arms that support the field sales offices. So we feel like we're providing data to you, but you're not listening. And we didn't blame them for not listening, because, like I say, when you're presenting crosstabs of data and other departments are doing exactly the same thing, then it's who shouts loudest, really, and who's providing the best value. And so we weren't providing value. And in about March of 2011, we were actually bringing another individual onto, or looking to bring another individual onto the team. And during the interview, you know, I talked to him about this communication problem that we had. You know, that we had these good insights. You know, we had such a large and growing amount of customer data, but we just couldn't, you know, provide those actionable insights back into the business. And he said, well, okay, go and look at this tool called Tableau. So I went back, downloaded the trial version, and immediately was able to replicate what I had in Excel, but also start to develop a few other kind of graphical representations of that data, but very, very quickly, of course, and also more repeatable. Okay, you just add in the data to the bottom of your Excel data set, and away you go, and you just click refresh, and so on and so forth. So all of a sudden, we're seeing a lot of productivity. This is the first, it's a kind of a snapshot of the email that we deployed in July of 2011. So from around the April to July point, we were actually pushing emails out representing the Tableau visualizations, but we were doing it in a PowerPoint form for a couple of months while we, you know, definitely assured that this was the way we wanted to go. So we used PowerPoint for a couple of months, and eventually in July 2011 we pushed this out, and as you can see, we were asking people to download Tableau Reader to look at the report, and we didn't kind of even think about Tableau Server at this point. And the email that you see now that's just appeared on the screen came a day after the report went out, and this actually came from the president of Trane North America. I mean, to say that we were excited was an understatement. I mean, it's for 3 years we've been providing the Excel kind of reporting, and no one's listening. You know, no one's really kind of coming to us and saying, you know, what more have you got? Let's pull from you. It just wasn't happening. We were pushing and pushing, but it just wasn't working. Within a day, we've got the president asking to set up a call. He's asking for 30 minutes. It subsequently turned into an hour-long call with him and his territory vice presidents, where they're asking simple questions. Well, what does that metric mean? What does that metric mean? Well, how are we going to deploy this? How are we going to do that? So immediately, we knew that Tableau was going to be the solution, and so that was great, seeing that adoption or that focus from the high level. But what we can also demonstrate, what I'm going to show you here, is that it wasn't just the executive C-suite that was invested in what we were doing. We obviously deployed to across the business, across North America, and you can see that the number of downloads for the Tableau Reader product we actually had access to from Tableau. We can see that kind of exponential growth occurring. So we knew that people were interested, more and more people. There was great feedback from the business, from the field, and we can see very quickly there just how many downloads we had in just the first 4 months of deployment of these new reports. So that's great, and what it enabled us to do, this was the next 2 or 3 years. And I'm not going to kind of skip too far ahead like that for the rest of the presentation, but we spend a lot of time iterating what we produce, which I'm sure all of you will do and do already. The important thing about understanding this ongoing iteration, as I kind of describe it, is that this wasn't just our team saying, oh, I've got a new way that I can think about the graphical representation of a trend or of a particular score. This is the business actually coming to us, so people out in the field kind of getting excited about this data and getting excited about the insights that they see and telling us, well, what about this way? Can you do it that way? Can you do it this way? And, we spent probably a little bit too much time with hindsight kind of changing the reports perhaps too often. But in one way, it enabled us to build up relationships with our sales officers, with our field. And that really helped us get closer to them and understand even more about what they needed from our metrics, from our insights that we were pushing out to them. But what I'm going to show you now, so this actually was quite a while back, I think back to 2011. But the next this depiction here that you see is what we've been using now for a kind of front page summary for the past 12 months. And so I've obviously anonymized some of the information, so we're just seeing metric 1. Obviously, it's not called that in the report that the team actually sees. But I'll kind of walk you through what we've got here in this representation. So just at the top left, we've got our 4 key metrics that we track, and these are the North America scores. We can see the goal. So we first of all got the score represented. What's the goal for this particular metric? And then how are we doing compared to 12 months ago? Are we moving up? Are we moving down? So very, very simple, but effective. And then underneath that, for each of the metrics, we can see who are our top and bottom 3 districts. So the way that Trane North America commercial side of things has its hierarchy set up. We have a region, North America, then we have a couple of territories, the east and the west, and then we have our sales districts actually underneath the district sales offices. So for example, here in the Northwest district, we have the Seattle office, we have the Anchorage office, we have our Hawaii office. But here we're just representing the districts. So again, you can see the top and bottom districts, and it allows executives to see very quickly who are the top performers, who are the bottom performers. But, particularly we want to drive it towards the top performers. Who are the ones that you might want to go to and find out what they're doing for a particular metric. And so that's represented very clearly here. And then at the bottom, again, all of those 4 metrics, but we're showing all of the districts. We're showing you that for this particular metric, there seems to be a clustering. So that's a pretty solid metric that allows us to see that there's not a broad range of scores. We can see that some districts are ahead of goal. They've hit their goal for that particular metric. So the blue and red, very simple, displaying that. This metric 4, the reason for the broad range of scores for this metric is that it's actually a newly visible metric. So we've been tracking data for this one, and let me actually just throw this up here. So we've been tracking this data, or we've been collecting data for this metric for a little while now, but only for about the last 6 months have we actually made the metric visible to the business. Hence why we've got such a broad range of scores, because people just weren't focusing in on it. Now, as you can see with the trend line, about this point we actually made it visible. And you can see that it's kind of growing back up again. So, in about 6 to 12 months' time, I expect that metric for the numbers, for the range to be a lot tighter, similar to the other metrics. So I already kind of showed you some of the functionality of this particular dashboard. It's a simple dashboard, and it's meant to be that way, right? It's an executive level summary. We don't need them, and not that we wouldn't want them, but we want to kind of think about how much time they're going to want to spend in this tool at an executive level. And really, they just need to see a few things. How am I trending? What about year over year? Is there a year over year trend that I might want to look at? Just very quick but simple. But the nice thing about something like this dashboard is that should they then want to go to another dashboard, perhaps one with a little bit more detail, they already feel comfortable with the tool. And that's the key purpose of this particular dashboard. Just a couple of other things, and I'll reference some of these other components in a later dashboard. But this is our branding. So about a year and a half ago, we decided, as Tableau was becoming more and more popular and prominent within the company, and more people and departments were pushing out Tableau reports, we wanted to identify ourselves and our team as a producer of a certain quality of reports, so we branded them as InVisions. The cool thing is now is when we see emails from people saying, is your InVision coming out yet? When's your latest InVision coming, and so on. So they're buying into that idea, and as I say, it certainly allows us to create a sense of quality within a certain report. So take another step back and kind of start to think about the metrics and how we've kind of accelerated and improved these metrics as we go through time. Just to kind of set the scene for the next few slides, we've got before Tableau and then we've got after Tableau, and this is the number of completed surveys for one of our surveys that we deploy. And so before we pushed Tableau out, we were averaging about 78 completed surveys in any given month, and this is for North America. So not a vast amount of insight that we were gathering, and certainly once you drill down to an office or district level, you can imagine that those sample sizes obviously get smaller and smaller too. Post-Tableau deployment, we've almost doubled the number of surveys that we're receiving back from our customers, and what I want to go in and show you in a moment or two is how I believe that's happened as a result of the Tableau deployment. But before I do, let's just highlight one of the numbers in the before Tableau deployment. So this is June 2011. This was our highest number of surveys in the 3 years we've been doing this survey. Bear in mind that June 2011, we'd actually also been pushing out these reports using Tableau in PowerPoint. So, in some ways I could actually bring this one into the next after Tableau deployment, but I'm going to leave it here just for now, and then demonstrate that even in the past 3 years since we deployed Tableau, there have been 7 months 7 months where we've had a greater number than that 182. So something's going on where we've made a pretty significant change in the number of surveys that we're getting back, and we want to try and understand why has that happened. What's driven that upward movement? Because it's a good thing, but it's going to be helpful to try and understand why it's happened, so we can either do more of it or we can think about doing more of that elsewhere. So let's consider response rates. I put up at the top here that response rates are a contributing factor, and then I don't know actually that's really misleading. I'm not sure that they're necessarily a contributing factor. They're potentially they're certainly important, but as you can see, as you look at that trend, it's kind of up and down, and but at the same time, our surveys have been going up. And then really, if you drill into a couple of periods of time, you look at that period around October 2009 into early 2010, we had a similar response rate to the response rates we've had over the past 12, 13 months, 21, 22%. And yet the number of surveys that we had here is significantly lower than it is in this area. So, I'm not going to sit here and say yet that it's the main factor. I think it's potentially contributing to the number of surveys we're getting back, but it's not the main driver. So what is the main driver? Well, in April 2011, we introduced a new metric that we call compliance. Really, compliance for our team is data compliance. And what this really means is, let's say we have 1,000 projects that we could survey, that we could send a survey for in a given month. How many of those actually contain the relevant data inside of our business systems that we can actually send a survey to it, i.e. an email address, first name and a last name? And we only started tracking that in April 2011 when Tableau was deployed, when we started using Tableau. Because what happened, of course, is that all of a sudden we've got this time on our hands. We're able to kind of sit back and think, okay, what's going on here? We want to get more data. We want to communicate data. We want to get these insights into the business. We've got more time on our hands. Let's think about this. Okay, and all of a sudden we realized, well, we know, and we knew that in our process we weren't sending out as many surveys as we could. But now we had the time to think about producing a metric and providing those insights back into the business, back to the people who could actually impact it, i.e. the sales officers, because they're the ones who actually go in and put in the names and email addresses back into our CRM databases. So in July 2011, we published our reports into Reader, and you can see what happened. So basically, from July 2011 to July 2013, what we're seeing there, it's not huge, but it's significant. Okay, so if you think of a pool of those 1,000 jobs in a given month, and in July 2011 we can send 600 surveys out, and then in July 2013 we're sending 770, 760. We're sending over 150 more surveys in any given month with a consistent 20% response rate. We're just getting more data back. So the metric has helped drive it. Tableau, and the fact that we've been able to deploy Tableau, the fact that we've been able to have more time to think about these new metrics and actually push these metrics out into the business and show the metrics, show compliance, and demonstrate to the business that there are opportunities to get more insights, has driven that number up. And of course, what you're also going to find is that the field sales officers are looking at their pool, their samples of surveys, and saying, well, I only had 5 in that given month, or I only had 2 in that given month, but I love this report. I just don't think it's really kind of helpful because I'm not getting a good enough sample of my population, of my customer base. Well, yeah, that's because you only have a 60% compliance rate. If you increase your compliance rate to 80%, to 90%, you're going to get more insights back. So the Tableau reporting that we've pushed out is going to be more helpful for you. Okay, so all of this kind of back and forth. And at the same time, again, we've got more time on our hands because of the fact that we're not using Excel anymore. Our team starts going out to the business. And actually, a lot of that was business pull. So the sales officers, district leaders are saying to us, I love this report, I want to know more about it. And they start asking us to come and visit their offices and talk to their leadership teams about this. So all of a sudden we've got this change management kind of composition to our team, and we're trying to talk to them about why it's important to drive these changes within their organization, why it's important that the people who input data into the CRM databases should be doing it now. So this really led to a cultural shift, both in terms of the customer experience and also the kind of focus within the sales offices. And that's what I think has been one of the really enjoyable factors about what we've done over the past 4 years, has been that cultural shift. just want to kind of demonstrate that, you know, not everything's plain sailing. I mean, there are some offices, as you can see, that from that 2011 point where we introduced the metric have kind of slightly gone down. Fortunately, they've not gone down massively, but there's still opportunity. Okay, and we continue to kind of try and identify those opportunities to figure out which of those sales offices and districts can do better. But behind those three, I guess, outliers, you can see that the lighter blue kind of trend lines for those offices has been incredible. So these are really kind of internal, kind of navel-gazing type of metrics where we're looking at ourselves. But what about our outward customer experience metrics? Kind of really the key metric. Are our customers having a better experience as a result of this, which is really the purpose of the title of my session, is how we've driven these customer experience metrics, and specifically these outward-facing metrics up. And you can see here, again, depicted with a before and after Tableau deployment. In the 3 years prior to Tableau being deployed, we averaged around a 45%, and you know, we'd been kind of approaching 47 as a high if we disregard some of these higher numbers when we had very, very, very small samples at a North America level. So, you know, there was a little bit of a nice upward movement, but pretty kind of flat. Since Tableau has been deployed for this particular survey, you know, we can see that average has kind of crept up to around 51%, and in fact, actually, the last 12 months, we've been at about 55%, 56% for this key metric. Just as a quick point of reference and context, this is actually a 200-point score, or a 200-point scale, rather. So 55% is actually a very good score. It's a negative, minus 100 to 100%. But the key thing is that the metric has gone up, and we've seen now, we've analyzed it, and it is a statistically significant improvement, which obviously we're very proud of, and you know, really we believe has been impacted or has occurred because of Tableau. But the metric's not going to just change by showing the number every month. We need to do a little bit more than that. So the summary dashboard that we looked at earlier on is not in and of itself going to improve our customers' experiences. But what we've deployed inside of Tableau has been a dashboard that's really done that. It's driven those key drivers that I'll talk about in a moment into the business. So the key drivers that I referenced earlier on, where we talk about, okay, these are the particular touch points. So for example, a technician arriving on time is important to our customers. So we analyze those touch points, the questions that we ask in our survey, and we do that logistic regression on them, and we determine, of the questions we ask in the survey, these particular questions are impacting our customers' likelihood to repurchase Trane equipment or renew their service agreement. So we were doing all that back in 2008. We just weren't able to display it. We weren't able to show it to the business and ultimately kind of drive these customer experience metrics up. So here, I'm going to show you how we've done that. And so this is our key driver dashboard. And so what we're representing here is actually one of our districts. It's the Maryland, Pennsylvania district. And so you can see, again, I've anonymized it as much as I could without, you know, kind of reducing the ability to kind of understand what's going on. But you see these questions. So obviously there are more questions in the survey, but these are the ones we've identified as being important to impacting our customers' experience. And so what you're seeing for Maryland, Pennsylvania, from top to bottom, by the net score. And so that net score, you can see, is that little circle. That net score is simply, the calculation is the percent delighted customers, so the light green bar. And from that, we subtract our dissatisfied customers, the 1s through 4s on a 1 to 10 scale. So it's the red or the darker black. So that gives us this net score. And so very quickly, Maryland, Pennsylvania can see that it has 4 areas, you know, that are really significantly lower than the others, maybe 5 or 6, in fact. So that's good information, okay? They can see that, there are some areas in which they may want to focus, but that's one level of context. What we've added, and this has, again, been something that the businesses, the consumers of the report have really enjoyed, is this other piece of context here. So we've got a triangle, we've got a dark red triangle, and we've got a pink triangle. The dark red triangle gives Maryland, Pennsylvania the context that that particular question is below the North America average for that question. The lighter pink triangle simply means that the score is down from 12 months ago. So why would we show that? Why would we depict that for them, give them that level of context? Well, the reason is because this particular question, these 4 or 5 here, yeah, they're the lowest scores, and they definitely may be areas that the Maryland, Pennsylvania wants to focus on. And again, they can make that decision. But let's provide this insight to you. This particular question, 67%, if we didn't have this information, you probably wouldn't even focus on it at all. It's in the middle of the range of the questions. You'd definitely be going after these ones. But now you understand that actually this question could arguably be interpreted as your worst performing attribute when you think about the context of how the rest of the districts are doing. Well, that might make you think, well, maybe let's consider working on this particular metric. So that's been, again, very helpful in driving analysis into the office to say, okay, here's all of these components. You make the decision finally, but we're offering you all of this information. We're also offering them the context of how many surveys they've had in the past 12 months. Okay, so if it's less than 30, we would recommend kind of take that score with perhaps a little bit of a pinch of salt. In this case, Maryland, Pennsylvania has more than a high enough sample to say, yep, this is representative of my customer base. And then again here with this box plot, it's really just a representation of really this, basically demonstrating the Maryland, Pennsylvania score with the circle, and then the median inside of that box plot is essentially the North America score. It's probably actually maybe just to the left or right of it, but to all intents and purposes, that's the North America score. So again, it's just more context for the district to be able to make decisions. So what's the next step? Well, let's say I'm the district leader, or I'm the operations leader in the district, and I want to kind of find out a little bit more, let's say, about this question 17. It's down a point from prior year, and I want to understand maybe a little bit more about why that is, or I want to think about creating some action planning to improve that score. If I go ahead and click on this, what we've built out, 2 things. I'm going to draw your attention, probably because your attention has been drawn to it already, to the coloured area at the bottom. So what we've been able to do here is include the last 12 months from the point of this current report, the last 12 months of the open-ended comments for that particular category of question. Okay, so this question 17 falls into the most recent call question category. Because we don't ask open-ended comments in our survey for every single question. Okay, we group them into categories and then ask them to say a little bit more about that if they wish. So here we've got those 12 months, and we can break it out by sales office. So it's just color-coded. So it's been really effective. I use the hover over, and we can see that this particular customer, and I've anonymized the data, but you can see what he's been saying. So it allows the office to kind of thematically determine, if there is something going on for that category of questions, then they can maybe say, I'm going to go and focus on that. And we're doing that because of this theme of comments that we've seen. And then the final component of this dashboard up at the top right is what we call our kind of suggested ways to improve kind of countermeasures. So we've worked with the operational side of the business, and we've looked at each of the questions, and we've said, okay, what things might we do, or what things might we suggest to the office to think about if they wanted to improve their scores for this particular question? What might they want to do? And then so we just kind of can tie in this case, and obviously I've not anonymized this particular question, just are our technicians informing the customer of their arrival when they get on site? It's a really important attribute for this particular survey. It's just really simple, review the importance of checking with the customer, during your technician meetings every month. Now, the office or district is going to have other ideas about what they might want to do to improve this particular attribute. But what we feel that we're doing is being a source of insight, being a solution provider as much as just a number provider and a metric provider. So it's kind of positioning ourselves as a little team that you want to kind of go and talk to and help and discuss problems with. We have 20 minutes left, I think, so that's good. Another of the little things that I wanted to reference, and I talked about these earlier on. Here, we've got a couple of things here. If I go ahead and I click on this, it just it directs an email to me with the subject line I need help with. In this case, I'm displaying it's our service agreement report. So, a nice way to interact and allow business users to just very quickly click on that and say, I've got a problem with the report, or I don't understand the number. If they clicked on this particular link, they'd be able to go out and actually see the report, the survey inside of our Qualtrics survey tool. And then this developed by actually takes, when you click on it, it would take you to our SharePoint, our team SharePoint site. So just some kind of cool features, again, to bring some visibility to us, to what we do, but also enable the building up of communications and trust and relationship with the users of the report. So we're pretty proud of this one, and it's a real, it's our key driver report, but we feel it's been a key driver in all of the customer experience metric improvement that we've seen over the past few years. So today and beyond, what we see and we already see is an amalgamation of Alteryx and Tableau. And the final few slides here are certainly going to kind of plug Alteryx, because for me it's just been an amazing tool to work Alteryx and Tableau together. We talked about the productivity that Tableau generated. The productivity that Alteryx and Tableau generate is incredible. I mean, you would just kind of, as soon as you used Alteryx, you would be like, I've got to think about this, and not just think about it. My boss needs to get me this Alteryx license. Unfortunately, mine did back in October of last year, November of 2013. Why is it so powerful for us, and how is it also helping drive customer experience metrics up? Well, as all of you know, if you use Tableau, for customer survey metrics and for time series metrics and for year-over-year scores, you need Tableau to start performing table calculations. And table calculations can be complex to build. And depending on the amount of data you have, they can also then start to reduce performance, especially if you deploy Tableau on server, which we do. And also then, if you want to sort data, if you want to rank data, sort data by a net score for a 12-month moving average, try and sort that with a table calculation. It's really difficult. You need to start creating workarounds and so on and so forth. So we do all of this in Alteryx now. We aggregate our calculations. We know already now what people want to see, the 12-month moving average. We want to see it by office, by district, and so on and so forth, all the kind of simple things. So we just do it inside of Alteryx. And then we push out to the TDE file, to our Tableau file, those aggregated, non-aggregated calculations as we wish, because we can obviously kind of connect in multiple TDE files and join them all together inside of Tableau if we wanted to. But what this means is those complex table calculations no longer exist. We're computing all of the calculations inside of Alteryx. So essentially you've got these aggregated calculations that mean that when you run Tableau, whether it's in desktop or on server, it's running very, very fast because Tableau doesn't have to make those computations. Now, certainly there's some work and effort involved in doing this inside of Alteryx to kind of get it right and ready. This is just a kind of visual representation of one of the modules that I run, and it does get fairly complex. So again, this is a point at which I would definitely recommend if you're interested. Feel free to connect with me, and we can kind of look through and maybe kind of work through how you might replicate this, but I would definitely recommend it. One of the other things that Alteryx does, and this really isn't kind of Tableau-centric, but it enables us to continue to engage with our business. And this is an email tool feature that Alteryx has. So what we do is we actually use we use an API connector inside of Alteryx to go out to the Qualtrics survey tool, and we pull our data. And actually we do that for all of our data actually now. Take a step back. When we push our panels into Qualtrics, and I'm sure all of you know what that means who are involved in surveys, you have to go in and create a name for it and so on and so forth. Well, we can do that with Alteryx now. So we build out our module and we can push out all of that information. So I don't even have to log into the Qualtrics survey tool anymore, essentially, to push out my surveys, to get the data back. But this particular tool, going back to this one, is we use the Alteryx connector. We go out to Qualtrics. We pull out surveys that are completed just a second ago, and we run through the module and we create a little report that essentially is formatted really nicely and then goes out to the business, is sent out using the email tool and sent out directly to individuals within the field. Now Qualtrics used to be able, can do that. Let me show you. But this is what it looks like. It's kind of nasty. And if you're trying to figure out, well, why have I been sent this alert? You've got to kind of go through it, and oh, it's that one, it's the 4. Okay, you know, so you're asking the office to perhaps do again a little bit more work than you might want them to do. So what we built out, and actually I've already anonymized this one, but again, this is Alteryx, and so you can format this email, and so essentially now we've got that same information, but in a nicely formatted email. And in fact, if this was an alert, what Alteryx can do is actually color code the number. So if this was a number, if this was a rating of 4, that would be emboldened and in red. And this text here would say there is a red alert associated with this email. So it's been a really cool feature that we've introduced, and again the feedback that we've heard from our consumers of this has just been phenomenal. And again, it just kind of positions us as a team that really wants to help and enable better actions and better improvement. And this is my final slide, and this is kind of talking to that follow-up metric that that email tool essentially now is. So the email tool has allowed us to build out this new metric, follow-up rates, and that was the metric I was showing you on the summary dashboard. Obviously at 2011 we didn't have, we only deployed this back in 2012 as a metric. So around this point we first deployed it. And it was, it kind of gained some traction immediately, but it was tailing off. But then obviously we deployed Alteryx at this point, and you can see that it's taken off again. And so this is really another thing that we've seen. And again, I expect this to continue up. It's just trended down a little bit here, but I really expect this to get up towards that goal of 99, 100%, which we've set. And it's really at that point that I'm going to conclude my session. I hope I've kind of demonstrated how our deployment of Tableau has been truly impactful on our customer experience metrics. It would be really weird after I've been talking about surveys if I didn't ask you to take this survey. So go ahead and do that if you get the chance. And it's funny, I was in another session yesterday where the individual said, "Can you take the survey? Hint, hint, fives, hint, hint, fives." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're not a survey guy, are you?" So at this point, I'll open it up to any Q&A. Yep.
On the open-ended text response, that's something that we kind of struggle with analyzing. Are you doing anything to look at what the responses are
Yeah, so the question was, it's a small room, but I'll just repeat the question is, am I doing anything with the text comments? Are we doing anything with analyzing the open-ended text? No, but we have one of our other business units has actually just purchased Clarabridge, I think we're about to purchase Clarabridge. So we'll be piggybacking on that, and we'll be able to use Clarabridge and Alteryx. And we already know what we're going to be able to do with it, and then be able to deploy it into Tableau as well with all the sentiments and so on. So it's in the pipeline, we're just not doing it yet. Yeah?
In the core dashboard for you guys and like the Pennsylvania thing, do you guys have a similar like time series, or how do you get time series?
So back to the key driver dashboard, do we depict anything as a time series trending? I guess it's this numerical value here of year-over-year change. That's that kind of depiction of trend. So yeah, I mean, obviously it always boils down with Tableau to real estate. I would like to maybe do it here as a spark line, perhaps, rather than have this depiction of the data, because I kind of already have it here. But is it going to be effective as a spark line? I don't think so, given our real estate constraints. But again, that's something, you know, should we hear back from the field that's really important, you know, then, you know, we'd try and think about how we'd be able to kind of change out the dashboard. And again, obviously you all know with Tableau it's pretty easy to do that. But we just don't want to make too many changes too often. That's what we did here about 12 months ago, that we were iterating a bit too often. So that's why, you know, what you're seeing right now is actually being pretty well set for about 12 months. So if there aren't any other questions now, like I say, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any you know, specific questions about Alteryx or Tableau, and I'll be happy to help. And if you want to collect a business card as well, that'd be good too. So thank you.